Welcome you all to this second lecture relating to the uh, 11th week, dealing with the course title History of Arabic Literature. Certain aspects, thematic, historical, socio-cultural, related to the postmodernism in Arabic, modernism and postmodernism in Arabic are to be taken into account in the following lectures. Among the postmodern scenario, in the postmodern scenario, we'll having uh, in regard to Arabic language and literature, there are a number of themes, a number of schools of thought with their representations, of course, embodiment in the domain of language and literature. So here uh, we'll be having existentialism uh, as a point of reference of a greater implications and the receptive domain. In terms of the receptive domain, this thought is associated with in the Arab world as well as in modern world, alongside the themes like postmodernism and structuralism and post-structuralism and deconstruction, the argumentative, the semiotics, the pragmatics, the feminism, the post-colonialism and post-postmodernism. So existentialism is the topic of this research, of this lecture. This actually is put forward by the postmodern scenario that has unfolded in 1990. But before that, the actual background, thematic, philosophical, and literary that it has, the postmodernism, postmodernist theories have as a common ground of concepts and paradigms. We'll be having the concept of the theory of existentialism, the philosophy of existentialism, because socialism, the socialist philosophies, Marxism, the socialist interpretation of history, the historical dialectical parameters while taking into account aspects of history in relation to humans, the historical role played by diverse factors in determining the very core of the society that gives birth to thoughts, to concepts. So, the socialist paradigm alongside existentialism, surrealism, and before that, symbolism, social realism. These aspects have played a notable role in the formation of the postmodern pedagogy, the postmodern scenario. Existentialism significant in a plethora of perspectives due to various reasons. The first, the very founder of uh, of existentialism in its second phase or second metamorphose, it's Jean-Paul Sartre, 1905 to 1980, the very celebrated novelist who had refused to accept Nobel Prize for Literature, saying that since this prize stands for, symbolizes sort of imperialism, imperial perspectives, that's why he cannot associate himself with this honor or with this thought or the institutions upholding this thought. That is the imperialist interpretation of life and society, the imperialist preferences, So, because of him, who represents the second phase of existentialism, who is also known as atheist existentialism, and he was very much concerned with the many issues concerning the modern world, like even like the issue of the Palestinians, the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian problem. He had visited Palestine at the time, and he was a very notable voice, international voice, coming from the West concerning human rights, violation of human rights, and so in the East as well as in other regions of the world. The first thing. The second thing is that alongside others like Simon de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, Martin Heidegger, Karl Jaspers, Gabriel Marcel, Soren Kierkegaard, etc., their books have been widely translated into Arabic and disseminated by the peoples. So these existentialist philosophers had found a greater amount of reception. They were received tremendously in the circles of Arabic literary as well as intellectual milieus. So, Soren Kierkegaard, it's actually the Soren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, and of course, again, a clergyman who was a clergyman, 1813 to 1855, Soren Kierkegaard, who is regarded the father of existentialism. Existentialism as the thought esteem as a philosophy, it was established by him. We have Nietzsche, 1844 to 19, especially in regard to his discourse on despair and how to look at man in multiple perspectives of thought and culture and his mind, etc. Fyodor Dostoevsky, Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, who was a partner of Jean-Paul Sartre. The celebrated writer of Simone de Beauvoir was the celebrated writer of Le Deuxième Sexe, the second sex, which is seen as a very notable book on certain aspects of the feminist discourse. Albert Camus, who was born in Algeria, and he's better known for his novel that is Al-Ajnabi, in the Arabic translation, L'étranger, the strange Ajnabi. Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher, 1889 to 1976, with his discourse on ontology, on being. Jean-Paul Sartre, of course, in his ontology, on his many books, chiefly Al-Wujud wal-Adam in his Arabic translation, that is being and nothingness, L'être et l'oignon in French, alongside many other books. Likewise, Karl Jaspers died in 1969, Gabriel Marcel 1976, Paul Tillich 1965, Nicola Avanano 1990, an Italian, Nikolai Berdyaev, a Russian, 1948. So these are the chief protagonists of existentialist thought or philosophy in two schools. The first is the theist school, a school of the very founder of existentialism, that is Soren Kierkegaard, and second is the school of Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, etc., that represented the what is usually projected as the atheist school of existentialism. Between 19 to 1960, many other authors such as Albert Camus, Franz Kafka, Rilke, T.S. Eliot, etc., they had been patronizing, they have been standing for the existentialist preferences in the domain of thought and literature. The philosophy's influence even reached uh, pulp literature shortly after the turn of the 20th century, as seen in the existential disparity witnessed in man's lack of control of his fate in the works of H.P. Lovecraft. So we can see that a significant number of the voices, very prominent voices, very powerful voices in the domain of literature. T.S. Eliot, Rilke, Kafka, Franz Kafka, Albert Camus, Hermann Hesse, uh, etc. Rolf Relison, Pirandello, uh, etc. These voices, because of their association with the existentialist thought, they augment the place, the position, the influence exercised by the existentialist philosophy and literature in modern times. Although there have been some points of disagreement between Martin Heidegger and Jean-Paul Sartre. Martin Heidegger, in his work, that is in later on humanism, Heidegger had criticized Sartre's existentialism. He says that existentialism says existence precedes essence. In this statement, he is taking existentia and essentia according to their metaphysical meaning, which from Plato's time on has said that essentia precedes existentia. Sartre reverses this statement, but the reversal of a metaphysical statement remains a metaphysical statement. With it, he says, with the metaphysics in oblivion of the truth of being. We have a large number of Arabs related to this thought. But before dealing with or talking about these figures or representatives of or a school of existentialism, Arabic school of existentialism, both in the domain of poetry and prose, philosophical writings, and other genres of writings, we must uh, deal with the primary aspects of some of the basic concepts we'll be having. So, the very basic concept of being and nothingness, and the concept that existence precedes essence, the concept of absurd, the concept of freedom, coupled with responsibility, and the focus on humanism and humanist interpretation of the meanings of existence, of the norms, values in society, or anything which has been, which humans have found themselves in association with. So there are these are some of the there are certain primary concepts that are very significant. Let's start with the primary concept of the difference between existence and essence. This is an ontological discourse dealing with the philosophy of existence, or anything that exists. What is the meaning of existence? According to the classical philosophy, the domain of existence is associated with what exists in apparent terms, in terms of physicality. It has its mental, it has image in mind, it has its substance, it has its essence. In Arabic, we'll be having the two words over here. The first is al-wujud, that is existence, and this another word, that is al-mahiyya, that is essence. So al-mahiyya and al-wujud, essence and existence. What is essence? Essence is the ontological reality in a conceptualized form. It is the conceptualized ontological reality that precedes the actual existence, actual appearance of a thing. Any object that we are having, before having its wujud, its existence, it has its mahiyya, like pen. Pen is wujud, and its essence, that is penness, for example, it is mahiyya. Insan, human, it is wujud. Al-insaniyya, this is mahiyya. We can see this difference or these concepts in relation to the traditional classical difference between the classical duality of al-jawhar and al-arz. Al-jawhar, al-arz, which are among the categories proposed by Aristotle, المقولات العشرة لأرسطاطاليس. So إذن هناك هذه المباحث عن الماهية والوجود. كل شيء موجود، كل شيء نراه، كل شيء هو في حيز الوجود، هو عبارة عن الوجود وعن الماهية. فالماهية سابقة والوجود لاحقة، أو أن الوجود سابق والماهية لاحقة. Now, second thing is that the great debate: what is first? Is it essence or existence? So, before the existentialist thinkers, the position was as projected in this famous saying, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. It was said by René Descartes, the great French philosopher. أفكر إذن أنا موجود. Cogito ergo sum. So here the primary focus was on thought. أفكر, cogito. I think. The thought aspect, the essence aspect. It is coupled with existence, means existence is secondary, and the thought domain, the substance, the mahiyya, the essence is primary. It was another projection of the same positions held by the ancient philosophers, Plato and others, regarding the ideals, a'yan, and the actuals, mawjudat. So, mawjudat and a'yan, there's a relationship between the two. A'yan hold the first position in terms of hierarchy, while mawjudat are secondary. So here again a relationship between mahiyya and al-wujud, cogito ergo sum. According to the existentialists, chiefly Jean-Paul Sartre, in his Al-Wujud wal-Adam, l'être et le néant, being and nothingness, he reverses this saying. He says that I am, therefore I think. أنا موجود إذن أنا أفكر، وليس أني أفكر إذن أنا موجود. I think, therefore I am. No, I am, therefore I think. He reversed this saying. It was a paradigm shift in terms of epistemology, where in order to interpret the things while related to ontological projections, so it was a reversal of thing. أفكر إذن أنا موجود إذن أنا أفكر. Sartre and other existentialist thinkers, they said that, although with some reservations regarding Soren Kierkegaard, because Soren Kierkegaard sees that a statement, a metaphysical statement, which remains metaphysical statement. So here we have the physics and metaphysics, the physical and the metaphysical. So mahiyya is metaphysical while wujud is physical. So the metaphysical statements remain metaphysical. That was a take of Soren Kierkegaard on the existentialist thought of Jean-Paul Sartre. So Jean-Paul Sartre and others, they said that, well, these idealistic ayan aspects of mahiya, essence, they are of no actual significance, actual concern in regard to the humans. What we find, what we see, what we are associated with, what should be our concern is existence, not essence. When we exist, this episode of existence is a full episode with all its values, priorities, issues, solutions. We exist. We were non-existent. We were simply in the domain of nihilism, Adam. Then we existed. When we existed, we have our existence. Now we have to determine what this existence should be. It is our determination. It's our preferences that we choose, that we make existence out of our preferences. So it is we who create themselves, ourselves. It's us, according to the philosophy of existentialism. So it is our existence coupled with freedom. We are free to determine what we are. Rather, we are condemned to be free. Means we have no option other than being free. And it was projected in another way, saying by the famous saying that you are free, but you are not free to be free yourselves from being free. أنت حر ولكنك لست حرا في أن تحرر نفسك من الحرية. يعني أنت مجبول على الحرية. معنى أن الحرية والوجود متلازمان بعضهما ببعض، جزءان لا يتجزأ أحدهما عن الآخر. They are intrinsically intertwined into each other. الماهية والوجود. Existence precedes essence. هذا هو. This. الوجود يسبق الماهية. Also regarding being and nothingness, there are some specific points related to existentialist philosophy, being and nothingness. What is being? It is existence. What is nothingness? Now, what is the meaning of nothingness? Nothingness doesn't mean that there is absolute zero. It's not shunya, it's not absolute zero, according to existentialism. Rather, it is a facet of being. So, between being and non-being, between being and non-being, here's the domain of being, and here is the domain of non-being. Or say, just reverse it. This is non-being, and at a later stage, we'll be having being. This being, which has come to us at a later stage, it was potential, it was possible. If it was not possible, it might not have come to us. Sure. Because if something is impossible, it cannot be possible. It cannot be a part of being. But if a thing is possible, then from possibility, it migrates, it transfers itself, it marches to another domain, that is possibility, actuality, potentiality to actuality. So this potentiality, we call it wrongly nothingness, nothing or nothingness. It is wrong to suppose that it was nothing. Rather, it was potential, because absolute nothing is nothing. Nothing is absolute nothing in this regard. Means if something is absolute and nothing, it cannot be a subject of philosophical discourse. Hence, he says that these people say that what we call nothing or nothingness, it is a facet of existence. العدم وجه للوجود. لماذا؟ لأن العدم ما كان محتملا، لأن يعني هناك الموجود وهناك غير الموجود. الموجود لم هو الذي وجد الآن ولم يكن قبل ذلك، ولكنه كان محتملا، كان ممكنا. الإمكان هذا، ما معنى الإمكان هذا؟ الإمكان جزء وجه للوجود. إذا لم يكن وجها للوجود معنى ذلك أنه لا شيء. يعني في هذا السياق نجد أن الفلاسفة الوجوديين يفسرون العدم، الوجود والعدم في سياقات خاصة وفق نظرية خاصة علمية خاصة. فلديهم العدم وجه للوجود. So here, this is something typical about the existentialist philosophers who say that nothingness, the concept of nothingness is to be revisited. It's not absolute nothing. It's not something like absolute shunya or zero. Now, when we are having this essence and existence and being and nothingness, the actual existence we are living, we are having, it's sometimes full of contradictions. It's something quite visible. It is experienced. So, the absurd, and this actually constitutes a domain of absurdity in human life, in the domain of existence, not limited to human life. Absurd. This absurd creates another thing, that is anxiety. 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 We are anxious. Why? Because there is no there's no certainty. There is uncertainty in a state of affairs marked by absurdness. In a state of state of affairs, absurd being, absurd aspects of existence causing anxiety. It is through freedom. It is via freedom. It is by the means of freedom. It is the humans exercising freedom that we traverse these stages of existence, these concepts. You actually make yourself as per your choice. So you have the choice. And who can have the choice? The person who has freedom can have the choice. If a person doesn't have freedom, he cannot have a choice. So the existence is absurd. This hardly, there's nothing like absolute nothingness. In view of the implications of the concept of possibility and how it is transferred into, how it is transformed into, how it is translated into actuality, which is then identified as existence, then the concept of existence proceeding essence, the phenomenon of absurdity, freedom. Now, when you are having the freedom, you are responsible to exercise this freedom. So, concept of freedom, the value of freedom, the option of freedom, which is not option because you are condemned to do this. Your being, your existence is nothing but freedom. There's no other things dictating this existence or to form this existence. It is you, your freedom. When this is the state of affairs, then this freedom must be responsible. It must be responsible. Why? Because if you exercise your freedom, absolute freedom, in a society where the other also exists, the other in terms of nature, the other in terms of fauna and flora, the other in terms of animals, the other in terms of humans. Of course, we are primarily concerned with the humans. So as the humanity uh, has millions and billions of of individuals, of units, they must have and they have the freedom, then their freedom must have responsibility, must be responsible. So freedom combined with the responsibility. So you are free, but you are responsible to exercise your freedom. Now these concepts which are chiefly associated with the were projected by the existentialist philosophers in both schools uh, of existentialism, atheist and theist schools. They have put the humans in the forefront of exercise to determine his place, his influence, his position in society, with no interferences whatsoever from anything that is outside the domain of the humans. So no metaphysics, no metaphysical considerations, no nothing exercised beyond the domain of freedom, which is irresponsible. Nothing like coercion, social coercion in any form, whether it is interpretation of the human choices, human struggle, human issues, their solutions, in any parameters, in any perspective, socialist or otherwise. Because in socialism, in Marxism, also the individual doesn't have any value. He has lost his value altogether. Here, everything is as it uh, has been analyzed, and it can be inducted by anyone. Here, everything is centralized. When socialism or socialist concept comes as a social paradigm in society, when it comes as a paradigm in society, here the individual with its individuality, specifications, individual voice, his choices, preferences have no meaning. These things have no meaning. He is actually merged into, assimilated within a bigger domain, that is the collective and the socialist domain. Coming to the last segment of this lecture regarding the Arabs, there have been several very prominent figures in the domain of language and literature, both in poetry and prose in Arabia. Abdurrahman Badawi, 1917 to 2001, in a number of his books. Rena Habashi, 1915 to 2003. Muhammad Aziz al-Ahbabi. Abdurrahman Badawi was Egyptian. Rena Habashi was Lebanese. Muhammad Aziz al-Ahbabi was Moroccan. Abdul Wahab al-Bayati from Iraq. Khalil Habi from Lebanon was a foremost poet. Khalil Habi, foremost poet. Salah Abdul Sabur from Egypt, foremost poet. Adonis from Lebanon, foremost poet. They are the representatives of, they have been representatives of existentialist thought and literature, both in prose and poetry in modern times. It is Abu. Now, there are several persons, names, figures in history who have been interpreted, whose thoughts have been interpreted in line with the existentialist ontological and epistemological projections. Here we can have the example of Plato, who says, Arif nafsak, know yourself, know thyself. So here the shift was from the outer space to the inner space. In the history of Arabic thought, we have the great Sufi Abu al-Mughis al-Husayn bin Mansur al-Hallaj al-Baydawi, in Baghdad. Salah Abdul Sabur has written a poetic drama on Al-Hallaj. Al-Hallaj أو ضوء الدم أو ضوء الدم. This is the title of his poetic drama. And Abdul Haq ibn Sab'in from Spain, from Andalusia, in his Rasail. These are two very prominent figures whose thoughts have been interpreted uh, in line of the as per the existentialist preferences. Abdurrahman Badawi is Miratu Nafsi Diwan, Al-Wujud wal-Adam, a book. الزمان الوجودي, another book. شخصيات قلقة في الإسلام, another book. So Abdurrahman Badawi has enriched this domain in a number of his writings. Irina Habashi, who wrote in French as well as in Arabic. فلسفة لزماننا الحاضر, بدايات الخليقة. These are some of the books written by Irina Habashi alongside other books. So these peoples have, in this sequence, we can see that they have contributed very significantly in this domain. We can have some glimpses of existentialist thought in the postmodern novels like قلاع ضامرة, الصمت والصخب, وطن من زجاج, أحلام محرمة, and other books we will be having. So with this, this lecture comes to an end regarding existentialism as a significant domain of Arab modernism and postmodernism as represented in literature, both prose and poetry. Thank you.